Good morning from the kitchen, folks. Today it's another experimental day in home brewing. I'm going to attempt to make a Dandelion and Burdock flavoured cider. Let's have a look at those ingredients. Here they are. Well, it's a cider, so I need to begin with apple juice, and I'm going to use apple juice from concentrate. I'm going to use probably 3 litres, but maybe 4 litres of apple juice. To get my Dandelion and Burdock flavour in there, I've got this bottle of Sainsbury's no added sugar Dandelion and Burdock. Pop, fizzy pop, soda to you Americans. Now, I don't want to put all of that into my cider, but I do want the Dandelion and Burdock flavour. So there's a twist. We'll come back to that shortly. I'm going to add a little bit of yeast nutrient to feed my yeast, and my yeast of choice today is Lalvin ICV D47. Along with these, I'm going to add 250 grams of dextrose monohydrate brewing sugar and a couple of tea bags for some tannin flavours. So the big question is, how am I going to extract the Dandelion and Burdock flavour from that fizzy pop? The answer? I'm going to use my air still. So before I go any further, I'm just going to go through the ingredients on the Dandelion and Burdock. First of all, it's got virtually no sugar in it, so that's why I'm adding the brewing sugar. But here are the other ingredients that are in there. Carbonated water, and that takes up nearly all of what's here. That's what I want to get rid of. Okay, alongside that, there's barley malt extract, there's acid, citric acid, flavourings, Dandelion and Burdock extracts, acidity regulator, trisodium citrate or citrate, sweeteners including sucralose, acesulfame, K, whatever that is, I don't know. But there's preservative, potassium sorbate and licorice, okay? Now, potassium sorbate is potentially an iffy ingredient, and some brewers would say you need to boil that to kind of kill it off. The air still will do just that. So the purpose of air stilling is, or stilling this, is to get the water to evaporate out of this. So I've got 2 litres of liquid here, and I'm going to remove at least 1 litre of liquid. So this will be then a concentrated and also flat Dandelion and Burdock extract kind of syrup, which I'm then going to add to the apple juice and the other ingredients to make the cider. So I hope that makes sense. Let's crack on. So I need to empty my Dandelion and Burdock into my still. Fizz. I love the smell of Dandelion and Burdock. It's the smell of childhood. We always had this when we went to my nan's at Ebden Bridge. So you can see it's extremely fizzy, and the still will kill that fizz off. So I've never stilled a fizzy pop before, and if this works, it opens up a whole new avenue of flavourings. So the still holds 4 litres of liquid, that's the full mark, and I'm way below that. It's just about finished frothing away. I'm going to put the lid on at that. So the lid just sits on top of the air still, and the air still is wired into the mains behind, and then on the lid you've got this little plug here, that plugs into the base. So this is the fan on the top of the still, the base is what gets hot. So the base gets super hot, the fan extracts the super hot steam up into it, cools it down through some cooling coils, and then the water will drip out just there. That's pretty much my basic science guide to what a still is. I remember in chemistry at school we once made a Liebig condenser. I guess that's kind of like the same thing. So I need to add this onto the base of my still, and this is just to feed the drip in the right direction so it doesn't go everywhere. And then underneath my still I'm going to place this jug to collect the water that will come out. So it will be Dandelion and Burdock flavoured hot water that comes out of it basically. And just to point out that I want to collect at least 1 litre, so that's where 1 litre is on the jug. I might go a little bit beyond that if it's really coming through, because the more concentrate and the less water, the better the flavour will be, I think, anyway. So I've got everything in place, fan connected to base, plug in, so power on, and then power on down here. Fan begins to turn, base begins to heat. I'll be back in about 30 minutes with an update. While I'm waiting for the Dandelion and Burdock to distill, I've got my jug and I've got my 2 tea bags here. I'm going to pop those in, and instead of making tea with water today, I'm going to make an apple tea with apple juice. So I'm simply going to add the apple juice onto the tea bags. Now the tea bags impart tannins, which gives it kind of like that cider bite. It adds that just extra little bit to your cider. You don't need to put them in, but I think it does add a little bit of something to it. Okay, so I've got apple and tea bags there. Now I could just leave these, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put this in the microwave for 2 minutes and then just leave it to stand for an hour whilst I'm waiting for the still to do its thing. So I'll get my jug in there, 2 minutes, that will come to a boil, and then I'm just going to leave it to stand. So now it's just a case of playing the waiting game. I'll be back with the still update in a while. So a quick update, it's about 40 minutes later. To my trained ear I can hear a bit of a popping sound, and that means that dripping will not be long. And just a couple of minutes later the dripping has started to happen. That will increase in pace. So what's happening now in here is that the Dandelion and Burdock is being deconstructed. The water is being separated from the flavour. So it's dripping in quite nicely now. It's got a real smell of Dandelion and Burdock coming out of this. And I want this jug to fill up to the 1 litre mark, which is there, and maybe a little bit beyond that. We'll see. Now I'm just going to leave this and I'll come back to you when I'm nearly on the litre mark. Okay, this has been a very slow job, and this is now over 2 hours later. Let's have a look where we are. And we've just passed the 1 litre mark on here. So what this currently means is that I've got 1 litre of water here, and I've got 1 litre of concentrated hot Dandelion and Burdock in there. I think I'm going to let this go a little bit further. I'm going to take this up to about there, up to about 1,400. So while I'm waiting for that to drip through, I'm going to get on with the cider. So here's the apple tea that I made earlier, or the tea bags in apple juice, which have been in the microwave. I'm just going to remove the tea bags and give them a squeeze between 2 spoons, just to get all that tannin and goodness and juice out of them. So this is now by no means hot at all. It's very, what you'd call lukewarm, so it's quite safe to pour it into my demijohn. And I'm using the good old traditional glass 1 gallon demijohn from Boots, 4.54 litres it holds. And then following my tea, I'm going to start to add the apple juice. So here's the rest of that first carton that I opened earlier to make the tea. And here is the 2nd litre going in. And just while I'm pouring this in, I'd like to ask you, have you subscribed to my YouTube page yet? www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk, opens up my YouTube channel. Hit the red subscribe button, press the little bell, you'll get a notification of every upload, and that makes me happy. So I'm going to add another litre, so this is now 3 litres in there. I've also got a Facebook page for Moss Home and Garden, so if you want to follow that or like it, great, thank you. All your support is greatly appreciated. So this is the situation currently. I've got 3 litres of apple juice and apple juice tea in there. I've got a litre of concentrated Dandelion and Burdock in there, and I've got just over a litre of water in there now. I don't want to do anything else at the minute, so I'm just going to have to play the waiting game with this, and all I'm going to do with my juice is cover it like that to keep any contaminants out. Okay, I've extracted 1.4 litres of water from the 2 litres of Dandelion and Burdock. Time to switch this off. So this, the still, is extremely hot inside, very steamy. I'm going to leave it to cool down for half an hour before I open it, so I'll catch you then. Okay, it's been half an hour. I've had a quick shower and change of clothes, hence the different appearance. This is the water that's come out of the Dandelion and Burdock. Just tastes like water with a weird flavour. Not really bothered about that. That will be going on the plants. Let's have a look inside the air still. Now this will still be very hot. I need to disconnect the fan and then twist the top and lift it gently. This is the very hot content inside there. This is the 600ml of Dandelion and Burdock syrup, which to be quite honest it doesn't smell that good. It smells a bit burnt, but it's an experiment, so let's carry on. So I've got my syrup in here and I'm going to add the brew sugar because this dissolves really easily and that's hot, so it will just dissolve in there into the mixture. And then I'm simply going to give it a stir. And that's dissolved straight away. Let's take a tiny little bit for a sample. There goes nothing. Oh, it actually tastes all right. It's like you would imagine, extremely sweet and strong Dandelion and Burdock. It does come through. So it's time to start putting this together now. I'm going to pour what's in the air still into the demijohn through the funnel, very carefully. And you'll see that this has completely changed the colour profile of the drink now. I've got my final litre of apple juice. I'm going to put that in. I won't get it all in, but I'm going to fill the demijohn up because I'm going to take some out for the hydrometer. I've got nearly all of it in. There's probably that much left in there. So I want this to mix as best as I can get it to mix. Possibly easier said than done in such a full vessel. It's warmer than body temperature. It's too warm to take the gravity, but it's not vastly too warm. So I'm going to pour some into the hydrometer tube and then just leave it for half an hour. So what I pour into the hydrometer tube isn't going back into the brew. There's just over 100ml sacrificed, and that leaves me a tiny bit of headspace in the top. Okay, in goes the hydrometer. Let's see what the original gravity is. And I'm starting off on an original gravity of 1.070, 1070. Anyway, folks, cheers. I'll give this a little taste. It tastes like really sweet apple juice with a huge tannin bite, but I'm not massively getting the Dandelion and Burdock. At the end, it's a bit of a blackcurranty flavour, if anything. Interesting. Let's see how this one pans out. So it's time to finish the cider off now, and I'm going to add a heaped teaspoonful of yeast nutrient. Well, it goes straight in there. And then finally, a heaped teaspoonful of the Lalvin ICV D47 yeast. Right, let's just give this a little bit of agitation. Let's get that yeast mixing, and all the bits that are stuck on the glass will hopefully come off as I do this. So it's very warm, it's very sweet, and there's lots of nutrient in there. I think this yeast is going to be rather happy. What do you think? So here it is, labelled up, D&B cider. I must remember that it doesn't stand for drum and bass. And I've got the airlock in place. I'll give you an update once fermentation has started happening. Note that this is very full and there is a chance that when it makes a krausen it could come out of the top. If that does happen, I'll simply replace this with a blow-off pipe. But I'm going to take the risk for now because it's stood on my kitchen sink and it's safe if it does make a mess. So we'll have a fermentation update in a little while. Catch you then. Okay, we've had a little move to the living room. It is 48 hours later. It actually took over 24 hours for the yeast to look like it was doing anything, for the krausen to form. But fermentation is now happening. The airlock is slowly bubbling. It's not rapid by any means, but this will pick up. So unless anything dramatic happens, I probably won't give another fermentation update. But if anything dramatic does happen, then I'll be back. Okay, so 5 days later, and you can see that we have had a little bit of an issue. Nothing dramatic, it hasn't actually gone down the edges of the demijohn. Just that bit in the airlock, which I'll just clean out now. Otherwise, all is good. Good morning from the kitchen, folks. Today it's my Dandelion and Burdock cider bottling day. Let's have a look at it. Here it is, and as you can see, it's inky black with a thin layer of sediment at the bottom. Obviously you can't see through it. Fermentation activity is negligible. I'm probably getting one bubble in the airlock less than every minute. So now it's time to get it from there and into these bottles. Before I begin transferring the cider, I need to add some priming sugar, and this goes into each bottle. Just under one of those per bottle. So the priming sugar is what the yeast, which is left in suspension in there, will have a little nibble on. It will cause a fractional fermentation within the bottle. A byproduct of that will be CO2, which will build up pressure, and that's what will give my cider a sparkle, fingers crossed. So the bottles are primed. Time to get the bung out of the demijohn. Siphoning tube in. Okay, I can't see where the bottom of the tube is. It's anyone's guess. I'm hoping it's in the bottom of the demijohn. It might be in the sediment line, but if it is, it doesn't matter because the first bit that comes out is going to go into my hydrometer tube. Let's hope it's not too high up in there. So let's rock and roll. And it's definitely in the sediment because that first bit that came out was sedimenty. It's clear now and it's going into the bottles. If I do get any sediment in the bottles, it will settle during the conditioning process, so I'm not worried. Never worry. We've got a nice bit of reaction to the priming sugar going on there, so hopefully that means we'll get a sparkle. It's a lovely Dandelion and Burdock stroke Coca-Cola colour. And into the final bottle, a smaller one. Hopefully I'll be able to fill this. And it's getting towards the bottom of the demijohn. If I empty that into that bottle, I take the excess from this bottle, the excess from that bottle, and a bit out of there, I reckon I can fill that. Okay, I will need to use what's in the hydrometer tube, so it's time for me to take the final gravity. And that has sunk very nicely. And this has finished on a final gravity of 1.004, 1004. So I'm just going to work out the final alcohol by volume by taking the original gravity of 1.070. I deduct from that the final gravity, which is 1.004, which equals 0.066, and then I multiply this by 131.25 to give me a final ABV of, drum roll please, 8.66%. That's quite a strong cider. So I'll just pour this in. It will mean that this bottle goes milky, but it doesn't really matter, it will settle. A little bit more headspace than I would have liked, but I can't really sacrifice anymore. The only other option is to add a little bit of spring water in there and then acknowledge that this one will be slightly less in terms of ABV. I might do that, otherwise I risk this all exploding out when I open it. So these are my champagne and Prosecco style bottles. I've had bungs softening in very hot water. I'm just going to push these in. I soften them in hot water to make them a bit more malleable. It makes the job just that little bit easier. Sometimes it can be quite tough on my delicate skin. Bash. Okay, so I'll come back to those bottles in a second. The next kind of bottle I've got, this one here, which I've just topped up a little bit. Probably 30 ml of water went into it, that's all. I'm using a crown cap and a capper. I don't normally do it on the worktop like this. I normally do it in the sink so it doesn't slip. Let's hope it doesn't slip. This is a rather reliable bottle. Some of them aren't. So I'm hoping it won't slip. And it won't slip. Excellent. Capped. So as for this style bottle, each of the bungs needs a cage. The cage is a safety feature. It stops the bung from flying off when the pressure builds up from carbonation taking place. Otherwise your bottle ends up like a missile. Or your bung does anyway. Right, that's one bunged and caged. You don't need to watch me cage the rest of them. I shall be back in a sec. So there are my bottles, bunged, caged and capped. I just need to give them a little rinse off because they're all sticky with bits of residue. And I need to label these, I want them to be clean. So I've got my labels made up in a very simple Microsoft Word template. I just need to print these off now. Okay, I'm just going to label my bottles, make them look nice and neat. But yeah, these bottles are nice bottles, but they do have a textured surface, which unfortunately means the labels have to go quite high. I didn't do this one high enough. Bit better. And there they all are. Okay, these bottles now need to condition for 1 month. Here's the bottles up on my drinks cabinet. It's just a normal drinks cabinet, nothing fancy, but every night the bulb at the top of the cabinet, as you can see up there, comes on for 4 or 5 hours on a timer, and the whole of that top shelf gets nice and warm. And it's a good place for conditioning. Now in summertime I don't need to condition these anywhere that's permanently heated because it's warm enough in my living room, and we're not quite in summer yet, but it's definitely still warm enough now. So that's where these are going to stay for the next month, and that will help them to carb. So the next film that you see from me will be in about a month's time when it comes to opening and tasting. Catch you then, folks. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It's my Dandelion and Burdock cider grand opening night. And yes, as usual, I'm quite excited about this one. So this has been conditioning in the living room for 6 weeks. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll have a sparkle. Now, I'm not convinced that it does have a sparkle because the bung doesn't seem to be raised. Let's have a look. So I just got the cage off, which is broken as I was just playing with it. Now, am I going to get a pop? I don't know. Let's see. Twist the bottle, not the bung. Oh, right. Oh, and we've got vapour. Yes, we have a sparkle. Oh, wonderful. Right, let's have a look what it looks like in the glass. Now, it's not a massive sparkle, it has to be said, but it's definitely fizzy. Let's just take a second to appreciate that. Now, smell-wise, I am getting the Dandelion and Burdock smell, and that's good because during the process I did think that I'd lost some of the flavour and the smell. No, it's there. Right. Chin chin. It's worked. It's definitely fizzy Dandelion and Burdock flavoured cider. Even, actually, it's got a little bit of a medicinal taste to it as well. A bit like fizzy benylin, but you know, in a nice way. Yeah, this is actually very good. Oh, I'm so happy that it's worked. So this is a really obviously great way to make cider, incorporating new ingredients and new flavours. And as it happens, tomorrow I'm bottling an iron brew cider, which I've made in pretty much the same way. But this has worked. I am drinking Dandelion and Burdock flavoured cider. How do I describe the flavour other than that it's Dandelion and Burdock flavoured? It's somewhere in between medium and medium sweet. It's kept quite a lot of the residual sweetness because there will have been non-sugar based sweeteners in the pop itself, in the soda pop to you Americans. So yeah, I am really, really pleased with how this has turned out. I had a feeling that it wasn't going to work for some reason. Don't know why, I just had that feeling. Good stuff. So, next one's Iron Brew cider. I've also got a cream soda hard seltzer, which I've made in a similar way, fermenting at the minute. But, you know, cola cider, Fanta cider, lilt cider. The world's now my cider oyster. Excellent. Anyway, folks, cheers. It's been a pleasure. It was an experiment, and I'm pleased to say that it's worked. I'm not going to have another brew film to upload now for another 2 or 3 weeks at least, because everything that I'm making is either in production or it's currently conditioning. So it might be 2 or 3 weeks before the next brew film comes up. If I get a chance, I'll do a cooking film in the interim, just to sort of keep the channel busy. But thanks for your support, thanks for your subscriptions. I really, really do appreciate it. I'm nearly on 1,000 subscribers now, which is like mind-blowing. So thank you very, very much for that. Cheers, and I'll catch you on the next brew. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.